All right. And my name is Ornella Hernandez. I am a Web3 reporter at Blockworks. So today we're going to talk about NFTs, the open metaverse, and gaming, and we're going to discuss what it takes to adopt this digital culture. All right, so let's start. Web3 is all about returning power to the individual, correct? And the foundation is built on community. But it's also a culture. So what are the main elements of this NFT culture, according to you guys? We can just start this way.
I mean, what are the main elements of any culture, right? I think culture comes with a shared affinity, for one thing, right? And so the fact that you have a shared affinity around a given NFT collection or maybe a game, that is what kind of starts with the culture. But then kind of where does it go from there? What does it represent to actually be part of a specific NFT culture? Like what does that NFT represent? And I think that that's what we kind of see over time evolving and changing.
Nice. Steve?
Yeah. Some of the things that have really resonated with me about broader NFT culture are these notions of expression, of community, and of identity. And this idea that you have something that exists in a digital world, it doesn't have to be the way you look as an individual, right? You can create this totally anonymous or pseudo-anonymous identity, find a group of people who you love spending time with. That's pretty wonderful to me.
What are the main elements of NFT culture? So given that Web3 is all about like power to the individual, but then also community. So what do you think are the foundation of the culture?
Sure. I mean, I think it's around digital ownership generally. You know, what's really interesting to see when you talk to younger people, Gen Z, for them the idea that you can own something in a digital way or in the physical world is almost blurred. Whether you own a pair of sneakers, you can put it on your avatar, which is a digital representation of yourself, or a real pair, it's still real. And so we generally fight the idea that because it's digital, it's still real. It's just not physical. So I think that's really what NFTs embody, is this idea that we spend more and more time in digital worlds, and therefore owning digital items also makes sense.
Totally. Henry?
It's super hard to go last on that subject because I think it's where we are right now in Web3. At the beginning, the idea of community was sort of this like new concept because a lot of the people that are sort of in the main demographic, we weren't part of like the Moose Club. I'm using like a club in the United States, like the Moose Club, or the Elk Club. And so NFTs sort of became a social club for a lot of us. And we gathered together around a digital collectible. Who would have thought? Like we did it with comics, as far as people that got into things like comics or video games. But I really think that the ownership of an NFT has really changed because it gives people a sense of ownership of the brand in a way that we never really felt before. If you owned a Marvel comic, you didn't really feel like you owned any part of Marvel. You just felt like you contributed to their coffers. Now, as an owner of an NFT, and especially if you're ingrained in the community, you feel like, oh, I'm part of this. I'm helping to shape where this goes, because of course we're very early. So I think a lot of, as a CyberKongz, a lot of what kind of binds us together is this real community where we follow each other around and we meet up at events like this. So to me, that's a huge part of what the Web3 culture is right now, is a community built around a collectible.
I think another element that's really interesting to me is that like the moniker for someone who's really into NFTs is a degen, right? It's a degenerate. There's something that's super counterculture about this culture that I think is really important, right? What's the first big PFP NFT project to come along? It's all about being punks, right? And so when you think about the counterculture, which really a lot of technology revolutions involve counterculture from the very beginning, right? The creation of the internet and the whole idea of decentralization, that we're fighting against some sort of centralized institutional power base. That is part of these the degen culture that I think is really core to what we're trying to build.
And Danny, why don't you talk to us a little bit more about the Meebits ecosystem and what you guys are trying to do and what the audience can expect from Meebits?
Sure. So I'm the general manager of the Meebits DAO. which is a DAO that's focused on building the open metaverse and using Meebits as a tool for doing so. Meebits is you might be familiar. Raise your hand if you're familiar with Meebits here, so I just have a sense. Okay, we got a few people. So Meebits is it's a voxel NFT collection. There are 20,000 of them. They were created by Larva Labs and now owned by Yuga Labs. And the whole idea behind Meebits is that this becomes your NFT for the metaverse. It was like the first 3D avatar project for this. Now, that's a really beautiful idea, that you could have one NFT for the metaverse, but trying to operationalize that becomes difficult, right? Now we're starting to have a conversation about interoperability. Can you actually take this one avatar and use it in multiple different metaverse experiences or games? So can you play in Sandbox and in Otherside and in Crypto Voxels and everywhere else? So the Meebits DAO really sees that as our charge, is solving these technological challenges around interoperability and really making this the NFT, the avatar that you can use everywhere. You know, I know there are other collections as well, CyberKongz included, that also are building 3D models and thinking about the same sort of challenges.
All right, let's talk about gamers then and how the definition of a gamer has changed. We're both players, but also creators, right? So what do you guys think defines a gamer today?
I think it's people who play games, period.
Yeah, okay. And then Steve, can you elaborate a little bit about what it means to build as a gamer?
So we've seen over thousands of years, people want to make games, right? There's this primal instinct to play and to create, right? These forms of expression through art, through making different, different forms of interactive entertainment, like going back into, basically before there's like a formal written language. This has always existed. And as digital tools have gotten better and better, as access to greater tools and as access to different forms of basically economic distribution have gotten better, the desire to not just create, but also to take on this entrepreneurial urge and to help forge these global communities is kind of unparalleled, and it's like super cool. And some of the best parts of Web3 and of these emerging economic systems and emerging technologies is that we're broadening access to both creation of communities and economic opportunity to people all over the globe.
I mean, yeah, it comes down to the notion of ownership again, right? And the ability to use your character or your assets in different ways and not simply renting it from the game or the publisher that, has created the game, but actually to be able to own those items and use them in the future in other type of content as well. Right. So I think that's a fundamental difference around digital ownership.
I will go last again and repeat what the other three people said. No, I don't think it's changed all that much to me. I think being a gamer, it's just through what medium are you gaming? So as we enter the metaverse, VXKongz, there's one beautiful grape VXKong behind there. As we enter the metaverse, I think the difference is that instead of when you play Fortnite, you're using a Fortnite skin. When you're playing Call of Duty, you're playing with a Call of Duty character. Now, hopefully, as we progress this technology, whatever game you're playing, you can take your asset into that game and be recognizable by anybody playing, whether it's a CyberKongz, whether it's a Meebit. So I think the idea of what a gamer is the same, maybe as it always was, but we're changing the medium through which we are playing.
Okay.
And I also think that gaming is just one aspect of what is being created in the metaverse, right? When we think about the metaverse, we have to think more broadly. It's not just about playing games, right? That is one avenue and one opportunity, and Sandbox is a great example of something that's building a big MMO game that people are going to be able to play. And I think that a lot of people who kind of grew up as gamers, they have that kind of DNA inside them, they're going to be thinking about NFTs in that mindset. But I think that there's going to be a lot of opportunities for NFT culture, right, which is the name of this panel, that go beyond just gaming itself. Right, and I'm interested in storytelling, which might not be a traditional game, for example, other ways of self-expression that can exist, and all of these things I think are part of the creation of the interoperable metaverse with NFTs.
Okay.
Okay, I just want to add one thing, and it's not a secret to anybody who knows me. I'm not a gamer. Like that is not my thing. My kids are gamers. I spend way more money than I want to on Roblox every month for my daughters. So I love the idea. A year ago, I bought each of my girls Sandbox land with the idea that one day they'll be in Game Maker creating whatever type of content they want. But the idea of being in the metaverse is so much more than gaming to me. It's just going to be, hopefully, one piece of the puzzle.
Right.
What I hope is that it's a place where we can all engage with each other, using our avatars, but it's a way that we can engage outside of Discord for maybe something that's a little bit more personal. One thing I really dislike about Discord, even though it is functional, it's just two-dimensional. There's a lot you can't get across in Discord unless you're on video chat or voice chat. So exactly to your point, Danny, like I'm looking forward to the metaverse being a social hub.
Henry, let's stay with you this time. And can you tell us a bit more about Play and Collect?
Oh, yeah.
Blockchain-based games of CyberKongz.
Yeah, sure. So CyberKongz Play and Collect is a game that's on Polygon. Basically, it's a blockchain transaction that if you own a VX Kong, on a daily basis, you can do a free run. And this is not something where you're controlling your avatar. This is basically a transaction on Polygon. And what happens when you go on a run is your VX Kong is collecting things. Maybe it's collecting banana. Maybe it's collecting sand. It's what we call right now a gamified minting experience, because every time you go on a run, you have the opportunity to mint an NFT, collect an NFT. So it's a little bit of a twist on play to earn. It's something that was never part of our original roadmap, but as we're all waiting for metaverses to open up to implement games and social hubs, we thought that we would add this on to give our holders something to keep them entertained as we're all waiting for, like let's say the sandbox to be completely open. So it takes a little bit of time, but right now it is a gamified minting experience, and it's fun. In the future, if we decide we want to, release a new collection, that's something we can do through our Play and Collect experience. All of our VX Kongs can be leveled up on chain. So everything that happens is on chain. So as you level up your character, back to the gaming idea, let's say that you were playing a game on chain using your VX Kong, or maybe you're using a Meebit. The idea of being able to carry levels across different games, then being able to potentially sell that asset in the future, leveled up, that's a cool thing that I think a lot of gamers or NFT enthusiasts could appreciate.
All right, so now we're gonna go this way, Sam. Tell us a bit more about what it means to build on the open metaverse, and you can talk about the merger today and what that means for the company and the future of Landvault.
Yeah, so just a bit of context. So I run a gaming company called AdMix, which is the largest in-game advertising platform. So we've been helping brands enter video games through non-intrusive product placements. So taking over a building or putting a banner on a billboard on a stadium and create those experiences where brands and content are really natively integrated. That was in the Web 2 world, and actually this morning we've announced that we merged with the largest builder in the metaverse called Landvault. Landvault has over 100 plus voxel editors, designers, 3D artists, and they're creating experiences from scratch in the metaverse, mainly Sandbox. And what's really interesting for us is that we see that as the next stage, the next playground for brands who want to enter the metaverse. We think that in Web3 and in the metaverse, brands are not just going to put ads. The advertising as a name actually will probably disappear or be phased out with Web2. We think that Web3 gives us a chance to create a better model for what used to be called advertising, which will be more around brand experiences. So the vision that we had around product placement in games, now we can go 10x that with the metaverse, because in the metaverse you can build whatever you want. So a brand does not just have to sponsor an experience, they can literally build the experience from scratch, create a cool game, for example, and that's still branded, but this is not intrusive, this is not annoying to witness. So this is why we're super excited about the future of the metaverse. I think this is not only going to create new business models and opportunity for creators to make money in new ways, like building content for others, but also create a better user experience, generally speaking, where what used to be called intrusive advertising is going to disappear because for the first time we have the medium to be able to do better.
All right, thanks. Steve, question for you. So because gamers don't stop gaming because of an economic downturn, right? Can you talk to us a little bit more about the investment side of gaming and Web3, and if we continue to see that investment in the long term?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, gaming is it's an evergreen industry. It continues to grow year over year. There was a period of kind of, unprecedented growth over the past 2 years, especially driven by a lot of people being at home, right? They were looking for things to do. They were looking for entertainment. They were looking for social connection. It was really a wonderful time to be in the games industry, and it was a wonderful time to engage in these digital products when a lot of other really tough things were going on in the world around us. So I felt like, very fortunate to be in the industry during that time, and to be able to help bring joy to people across the world. No question about it, right? The last 3-6 months have been tough both in the public markets for game companies, for public stocks, as well as the last 3 months have been very tough for tokens that are currently listed. We will see a decline in valuations come, first you see it public, then you see it late stage gross equity stage companies. We're seeing it in tokenized assets. We're going to see adjustments in valuations going earlier and earlier into the life cycle of these companies. And that's totally okay. That does not change the long-term viability of entertainment businesses, of games. This continues to be a growing market. Games are the fastest growing segment of media in the world, and Web3 games is the fastest growing segment of the overall gaming industry. So I remain super bullish. There are tons of venture capital funds that have, literally billions of dollars of assets that they need to deploy, and they believe in gaming. So are we going to see the same types of valuations we saw 3 months ago continue indefinitely? Fact is, no, we're not, right? We're going to see some stuff. I think it'll return more to what we were seeing, let's say, a year or 2 years ago. And I believe that that's very healthy, right? And we will continue to see investment in games and in the industry at large.
All right, thanks. Now I have a question for Danny. You can start, and then for Henry. Since you both come from Web3 companies, NFT collections, what is the importance of being able to bridge Web3 and in real life branding for your communities?
We now have the opportunity to express our identities in many different ways, right? So we're here right now in person, and this is such a great opportunity, because for the most part, the only time we get to interact is on Twitter or on Discord. And when we're here, we want to express the affiliations and the culture that we're a part of, right? So you see some bananas on his shirt, for example, right? You want to express in some way how that affinity. You're going to be seeing a lot of Borget hats or mutant hats or whatever it is. And so obviously, like, merch is a very simple way to kind of physically express that affinity that you have in your digital life. I'm also interested in all the different ways that people are now putting NFTs on their walls through moving frames and things like that. I'm pretty much of a minimalist in my life, so my NFT collection only exists online, right? I don't really share that in other sorts of ways other than, maybe wearing a hat here at some sort of IRL experience like this. So, I think that there's going to continue to be a lot of, and also like token gating for experiences, I think are going to be very, very important in the future. So NFTs are going to be able to give you access not only to specific events that are related to that NFT, but through other sort of brand partnerships and relationships. So you might get discounts at certain, department stores or brands or other things like that when there's brand alignment between an NFT collection and a given brand. We're going to continue to see all of these lines blurred over time.
Totally. Henry?
It's literally everything as far as I'm concerned. This is, to me, and specifically what I help with CyberKongz, this is the future of Web3, in my opinion. I mean, yes, we have the gaming side, and yes, we have the DeFi side. The part that excites me being a non-gamer is this idea of your NFT becoming something larger than just your community or your community at the time. CyberKongz have, I want to say, maybe 5,000 or 6,000 holders right now. It's a relatively small amount if you think of the size of the world. And so one thing that I really noticed, 2 different events where I realized that this is where we're going. One was VCon. So Gary V had the CyberKongz have an activation at VCon. VFriends are awesome, by the way. Like, shout out to VFriends. They're an incredible group of people. What I realized was that VFriends are centered around this idea of, let's say, Gary V. He puts a lot of positivity out there. People, they wait in lines that are, you know, a half a mile long to meet Gary V. Whereas, like with the CyberKongz, we go somewhere to meet with each other. By the way, VFriends are also gathering together. I have no doubt about that. But we are coalescing around, excuse me, our brand. And I just came back from Amsterdam, and I wondered, we've had lots of Kongz IRL events in the United States, and part of me wondered, what would it be like in Europe? Was it going to be different? Was it going to be the same? It was exactly the same. The people in, not that I expected people in Europe had 3 arms or anything, I just was like, is the feel going to be the same? It was exactly the same. I could have been in Denver and it would have looked just like Amsterdam. So I realized, like, the branding power of an NFT project it's massive. And so there are brands that are now coming to these NFT events. I guarantee you that there are tons of them outside of those doors that are IRL brands, Web 2, let's call it, that are looking for Web 3 partnerships. They don't know how to make inroads in. There's lots of Web 3 brands that are looking for Web 2 partnerships. I think this is going to be that next major venture of Web 3 is going to be the connection of those 2 things. But where does it make sense? Because not every Web 2 brand would make sense for CyberKongz, vice versa. We don't make sense for certain brands as well. But I think the IRL integration, whether it's token gating, like Gary V did with VCon, whether it's like, for example, last night we had a party with French Montana. He recently bought a CyberKongz. He invited a bunch of CyberKongz to his party. This connection in real life, I think, is so important for all of us going forward because we're in a really small space. So I think we need to grow it, and I think one of the ways that we grow it is through strategic partners with other NFT projects, but also IRL brands.
All right. And then do you guys have anything to add to that, or?
Yeah, no, I think you're right. The bridge with Web 2, and you know, Web 2 is where most of the people are still, and also most of where the money is, right? If you think about infusing capital into the metaverse to benefit the creators, the landowners, this has to come from outside of the Web3 bubble. And so a big part of what we do in AdMix/LandVault now is really educating the brands and helping brands establish their own experiences or whatever they want to create in the metaverse. And we see that this is really what creates this new economy in the metaverse where there's capital coming in and then creators can get rewarded for building the experience, and the landowners who host the experience also get rewarded. So you create that economy in the metaverse. And one thing that is needed is how do you put these different stakeholders together? Right now you have a lot of brands. They don't really know where to find creators or people to build for them. Vice versa, you have a lot of creators, maybe even in this room, but maybe they're not always able to find projects to build for. I talk to a lot of my friends who have lands, and they're telling me, I don't know how to make money with my land. So part of what we do, in addition from helping brands really creating those experiences, is creating tools, almost like a marketplace, to bring these different stakeholders together. So a tool where creators can find brands and landowners can find creators, and you start putting all of these different people together, and that is how you create an economy in the metaverse. So for us, this is really what LandVault is about. It's creating that technology that accelerates the metaverse economy, and I think this is what is needed to really take it to the next level.
Okay.
Can I just add one point to that? We have to do it in an ethical way. If we want to advance the space, there's an ethical way to go about doing all of this. So every partnership does not make sense. I know I said that before, but I think the ethos of this space matters a lot for all of our reputations moving forward. Partnering with a partner just for the sake of their name doesn't always make sense. There needs to be real utility. Otherwise, if you're seeing some random IRL brand with some blue chip NFT project that really is just there to create revenue, I think it's not a good idea for the long run. There needs to be a reason. You always have to answer why. And if you don't have an answer to the why, don't do it. Or wait till you do, because a lot of us in this space, I think we see a lot of times where you get these partnerships, but there isn't like a ton of substance behind it, and it just feels like something that happened to be able to, you know, sell out a collection, and then ultimately you have holders that spent maybe a decent amount of money, whether on the primary sale or the secondary, and 60, 90 days later, they're like, well, what does this thing do? So I think you really have to be thinking of why are we doing this, not just, oh my gosh, I'm really excited because Nike came to the table.
No, that totally makes sense. There needs to be purpose for what you're doing. And then Sam, going back to your point, the dilemma that you were talking about, do you think interoperability is maybe like an avenue towards growth and helping people to stay in the metaverse once they're there?
So I think interoperability obviously will be important, but I don't think that we necessarily need it for this economy that I mentioned exists. The way I see it is almost like each metaverse platform is like its own little country right now, and they don't necessarily communicate. So the borders are closed between the countries, but you can still have economies within those countries, and they're functioning really well. Now, when you open the borders and people can go from a country to another, then of course the general economy increases, right? Because there's more traffic, there's more commerce, there's more business happening. So overall, it would contribute to really accelerate the economy. But I think that we don't need that to get started. I think that each individual platform, the Sandbox obviously being one, you can still have a very successful economy with your own creators, your own landowners, your own brands, without necessarily have to open the borders. So I see that as a great, thing to aspire to, and obviously where we all want it to be, but not necessary to get started and hope already starting to have, exciting new jobs and just creating a great economy.
Okay. And one last question for all of you. What would you say to the skeptics of Web3 and their doubts that they have concerning all your projects? We can start wherever.
This conversation has actually made me think a lot about the dynamic tension that might exist between economy and culture, right? Because we're talking about two different things here, and I think we keep going back and forth, and I think that these both enhance each other, but also that there's some conflict that exists between them, right? If it's all about the economy, if it's all about creating commerce, it's all about kind of like bringing brands in, I think that actually moves us in the wrong direction. But at the same time, we know that there's value in what can be created in partnerships with large organizations. And so I don't know if this is an answer to the skeptic, or rather me being a skeptic unto myself right now, okay, right? As we continue to move this space forward, is like, where's that dynamic tension gonna exist between commerce and economy and like true creation of culture, empowering the individual and the creator and the artist, and allow that to continue to be the driving force behind everything that we're doing?
Yeah, I think for me, whenever I encounter someone who's a skeptic of anything, I want to be curious about what they love or what type of problems that they have. And if a medium, if a technology, if a community is unable to really resonate with that person, then either they're not ready or the offerings aren't ready. But if I do find something where I'm like, oh, you love this, or oh, you have that problem, I want to be able to point them to something specific that will make their lives better.
I mean, I think there's signs and numbers in terms of adoptions of crypto wallets and those other kind of growth factors that are just difficult to ignore right now. And so if you look at how fast this happened, we really are back in the equivalent of 1998 or something when it comes to the adoption of the internet. And so if you look at it this way, yes, some people can be skeptical. Obviously, there are a lot of things that exist today that might not exist in a few years, we know that, but the fundamentals, the promise of a decentralized internet, that is here to stay. And I think a lot of people are in it for the right reason, and they're really trying to build a better future for the internet. And I think anyone right now, some people might not believe in it, just like some people were skeptic about the internet back then. They didn't think that they will spend money on the internet or connect their credit card, but that happened anyway. So I think it's really about embracing it and trying to figure out what you can do with it and trying to approach it from a positive place to contribute to it.
You know on Jeopardy how you get the answer and then you figure out what the question is? I just tried that for $800, $600, and $400. What was the question?
Okay. The question was, what would you say to skeptics of Web3 and any skeptics of your project?
Okay. I think we have to give it time. We're to all of your points, like it's still super early.
Yeah.
So I can understand people being skeptical. I'll use Genesis CyberKongz as an example. When Ethereum was around $4,000, give or take, a Genesis Kong cost 800,000 US, 212 ETH floor price. That's a hard entry point for like somebody who wants to be in this awesome club I'm talking about. Even though we have 3 different tiers, I could see somebody on the outside who's like, to any triple digit or 6-figure asset is thinking like, well, this just seems like, what? So I think we've got to be able to overcome that, because ultimately if you were looking in from the outside at like, what are you getting for that membership? It's more expensive than like almost any golf membership that I know of, where you could go play, every day during the week. So I think we have to show why this is different. And I think that takes a little bit of time to show people like what we're doing here. And I think doing panels like this where we can educate and inform people that this is not just like a flash in the pan. We're here to stay, we're building.
Yeah.
I know it's cliche, the community that we're building, but it's the truth. These are the things we actually need to advance our space. We're building. K-Money, are you here? So that's how I look at it. The skeptics they'll believe over time. I truly believe that.
All right, thanks guys. I think we're out of time, so if there's any questions from the audience? Anyone? Questions? No? Okay. All right, thank you guys.
Yeah, thank you. Awesome.